After the Paris terror attacks, the French President François Hollande said that France will be merciless in its response. French warplanes have pounded Islamic State positions in Syria on Sunday. The police in Europe widened their investigations into coordinated terror attacks on Paris that killed more than 130 people. 12 fighter jets operating out of French bases in Jordan and the UAE dropped 20 bombs at a command and control center, a recruitment center, a munition depot and training camps of Islamic State fighters at the Islamic State stronghold of Al-Raqqa. The attack was carried out in coordination with the United States forces. The French President François Hollande had described Friday's attack as an act of war and promised that France's reaction would be merciless. Now, there were a total of 12 aircraft which participated in these airstrikes on Syria. The aircraft, 10 of them fighter bombers, Mirage 2000N and Mirage 2000Ds along with Rafales, launched simultaneous airstrikes from NATO bases in UAE and Jordan. They struck at Islamic State command and control centers, training camps, munition depots and a fuel dump. 20 bombs, we are told, were dropped. It was earlier reported that US intelligence had intercepted a communication between Al-Raqqa and the terrorists in Paris just ahead of the deadly terror strike. So 12 fighter jets from France, 6 Rafales, 3 Mirage 2000Ds and 3 Mirage 2000N aircraft participated in the airstrike. 1 maritime patrol and reconnaissance aircraft, the Atlantique, was used in support as a command and control station. India Today's editor Shiv Arur now joins me with the latest on the airstrikes. Shiv, the French President François Hollande had promised that the French reaction to the terror strikes would be merciless. Take us through how targets were identified. What were the targets that were acquired?
Well, these were targeting solutions that had been acquired and banked, obviously, by the United States. Got to remember that the United States and Russia are the only two countries that have had sustained air operations, against ISIS positions in Syria. So at this point of time, what we do know for a fact is that the US is the supplier of these of this targeting intelligence to those French fighter jets that have been operating from the United Arab Emirates and Jordan. But yesterday was only day one of the airstrikes. The question now is, when is the next operation going to actually take place? Was this, a simple one-off, airstrike by France, or are there going to be, sustained operations from the air by the French Air Force and the French Navy? You've got Mirage 2000s, you've got other aircraft already in the air over Syria. The Al-Raqqa city was bombed. That's been known to be a well-known and very highly fortified ISIS stronghold in northeastern Syria. But there are, of course, other positions as well. So this, whether this is going to, turn out and pan out into a larger NATO affair remains to be seen. Because so far, France somewhat controversially, Gaurav, as you well know, has remained outside the realm of operations against ISIS positions in Syria. It's been something it has been criticized about. Of course, countries have been, known to get directly involved only when there is a direct threat to their own homeland. But this is not the first time there's been a threat to France. The Charlie Hebdo attacks happened. Before that, there have been, pretty direct threats from ISIS towards the French homeland as well. But obviously, it took the Paris attack to galvanize France and certain other countries in the international community to look at what happened in Paris to be some kind of a moving force towards a larger operation to rid the world of ISIS once and for all. And these airstrikes are perhaps only the first baby steps towards that.
Now, Shiv, okay, so these are not isolated airstrikes, not restricted to one symbolic strike. Now, the US and Russia, so far, they appear to be working at cross purposes. The US and Russia were not a part of the same force that was striking, the Islamic State targets. But now, with Vladimir Putin and Barack Obama having that meeting in Turkey, with France also sending in their aircraft, do we see a coordinated world effort to take out all ISIS strongholds in Syria?
And that really is the big question, isn't it, Gaurav? Whether, the forces, that have been part of this operation can stop working at cross purposes and actually work together, against ISIS targets. Given the Bashar al-Assad, factions and the forces actually supporting him, namely Russia and others, and the United States' own position as far as the war on ISIS is concerned, it's become very, very complicated. You're absolutely right, Gaurav. The fact is, the big question at this point of time really is whether the Paris attacks will be enough to galvanize that effort and align it once and for all completely against ISIS. At the G20, you saw those amazing images of President Putin and President Obama sitting in a corner and actually talking. That wasn't just a Kodak moment for two of the world's most powerful leaders. That was possibly an indication of an alignment in the works between the United States and Russia. It's virtually unthinkable geopolitically, given where the US and Russia have stood as far as Syria is concerned, where as far as ISIS is concerned. But has Paris been enough to galvanize it, to align both these countries as well as France and other countries against ISIS? That's the big question. We're hoping to see some kind of indication of that in the days ahead this week.
Shiv, and India has been a victim of Pakistan-sponsored terror. We've suffered a similar terror attack from Pakistani soil. Is this war only against ISIS, or can India hope for an expansion of this war even to take out the Lashkar-e-Taiba?
I would tend to be a little skeptical about that at this point of time, Gaurav, but I don't think India is going to have any less hope about this. Remember what Prime Minister Narendra Modi, said at the UN conference and at the G20 about the world needing a definition for terrorism. Could this be a turning point? Could this be a crucial point as far as the world, uniting against terror in all its forms, beyond ISIS, to include, the Lashkar-e-Taiba and several other organizations, including the Taliban, the Haqqani network in Afghanistan? Who knows? The fact is, over the last 1 decade, there have been so many different operations against so many of these different terror organizations. India has always tried to make it a unified impulse against terror at large, and not just against the ISIS or the Lashkar-e-Taiba. Now, what Prime Minister Modi has done at the G20 has perhaps set the ball rolling as far as the United Nations is concerned, to come up with a consolidated view on terror, a definition for terror that will allow this galvanizing of the international community to happen every time there's a terror attack against any nation that is part of the United Nations. Whether that actually happens, whether this war against the ISIS will pan out and include other terror organizations like Lashkar-e-Taiba, remains to be seen. But that's a very good question.
Shiv, for the moment, many thanks for joining me. There's breaking news coming in.
Mani pa ma ga, ni pa ma ga, sa ni pa ma ni sa pa sa. Jahan tak yaad aati rahegi.